Ready when you are, brother.
Yeah, man. Well, that's why I just hit record. We're just gonna flow with it. We're gonna have some fun with it. You know, something that I sort of realized when I did your podcast the other week, the
Oh yeah.
313 many men, money, and marriage. I started thinking that people need to hear this information. I started thinking, you know, there's sort of a long list of youngsters coming up that are not experiencing the same sort of love and soulmate connection that some of us older folks have been lucky enough to experience in our life. Man, it makes life. It enhances all things on the positive side. So I wanted to go through like a list of keys to finding that special someone and also maintaining that relationship, because I didn't want to exclude single people, people that are just in the dating stage, or people that were also married. And I just have a lot of good points that I put together. I sort of went through my life. I was a person who was unlucky in love, man. For the longest time, I just couldn't get it right. Whether it was the other person or me, nothing ever sort of went together. And that came to my realization through meditation, that I was searching through all these potential mates based upon a picture, an idea, an aesthetic, a vision of what I thought my potential mate should look like. And when you sort of set those visions in your mind, you're oftentimes wrong. And in my case, I was absolutely wrong, almost to the degree where it was the opposite. And like I said, something that I experienced through self-reflection and meditation was because all those failures that I had in love, all those unlucky relationships that I had, was because I was searching for a partner based on some sort of need. I felt a hole in me. I felt like I was missing. You know, I felt incomplete. And when I seen other happy couples, it then pushed further my problems with love. By now, I'm starting to feel like something's wrong with me. You know, I was getting into my late 20s, early 30s. Something's wrong with me. Nobody wants to be with me. I'm unlovable. I started feeling that way. So luckily enough for me, fortunately enough for me, the universe put me on a crash course, man. It put me on a crash course of self-knowledge, of enlightenment. I'm not an enlightened being. I don't claim that, but certain things started coming to the light for me. So I was enlightened on certain things. And the thing that was first and foremost for me that I realized all my relationships failed was because I was searching out of that need. I was incomplete. I felt something missing. And when you're searching for a partner based upon those things, you're going to accept more and you're going to deal with things that you don't deserve because you feel that need. You don't feel complete. If they leave, you're uncomfortable. So my number one key is fix yourself. Fix yourself. Focus on you. Take the responsibility back to you. Figure out why you behave the way that you do when seeking a partner. You know, what are your real motives? Get down internally and really figure those things out. Come to a place, do the work until you feel comfortable being alone. And when you feel comfortable being alone, when you're all on being alone, when you're still at your best, then you realize you're in good company. And when you realize you're in good company, guess what happens? You start loving yourself. That self-love starts to radiate, man. And it's just that vibrancy, it's that frequency of love that will radiate and attract your true mate to you. Because now you've fixed yourself. You're not coming from a place of weakness. You're not searching on a base of fear or need. And I want to tell you something that may happen to you as well, like it happened to me. I was sitting in my house meditating, and I got to this point, like an epiphany, like a ton of bricks hit me out the sky. I'm okay, man. I'm okay being alone. I'm okay with me. I'm all right. In fact, I don't even want to date. I'm perfectly okay by myself. I may even prefer it that way. And when I reached that point of pure self-love, where I knew what I deserved, I knew what I wasn't going to deal with any longer, and I didn't even feel the need or necessity to have a partner in my life. Man, God done smacked me with it right out the sky. He goes, nope, now you're ready. Hit me with it, man. I swear within the week I had met my wife. Within a week, man. It just is like that, man. And I just ultimately think that is just the number one most important thing to me in finding love and keeping that love is developing and cultivating that self-love so that you radiate and vibrate at that frequency of love and you'll attract the right one to you, man. Not all the wrong ones.
That's a very good point, Robert. And I don't know, well, I'll say this, just to give your audience a little bit of background. I just recently retired from one of the prison systems, the federal prison system. I retired as a substance abuse counselor. So I've counseled both men and women for well over, I did over 26 years. Mm-hmm. So what I do want to say to the audience is that what Robert is describing is a term that we use that I, looked up and researched, and I would introduce it to the clientele, and it's called your self-concept. And if you listen to my podcast, you will hear me use that term once in a while. I did about maybe 3 or 4 episodes back. But your self-concept is made up of 3 things. It's your self-image, your self-ideal, and your self-esteem. So those 3 things define your self-concept. So the reason why you were struggling in your previous dating histories, and you weren't the only one, I was struggling too. I mean, we all were out there. I tell people, y'all can do it better than I did. I mean, I didn't get married till I was in my late 30s.
Right.
So it took me a while to figure everything out because I didn't know what my self-concept was. And what happens is your self-image is what the world sees. And that's what you want the world to see of you. So a lot of times you'll see certain guys, they'll have an image, they may have the goatee, they'll be tatted up. They want to have an image of, I'm tough. I have an edge to me. I'm rebellious. And the reason why they do that is they know that there's some women who are attracted to it. So that's part of their image. Then your self-ideal is the person you want to be. That's who you really want to be. And then your self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. Well, if all 3 of those things are not completed or correct, you mentioned God as a person is when you asked for all that stuff and you felt comfortable being by yourself. That was the point when you figured out what your self-concept was. God can't send you a blessing. God can't send you your soulmate until you're ready, because that same soulmate that he has designed for you is asking for help as well. And the universe has to line you 2 up, but he can't do it if your mind isn't where it's supposed to be. You are what you attract. You attract certain things. That's where you're at that time. So the universe can't get you with your soulmate until you get right. Once you get right, then here comes your soulmate. Your soulmate will show up instantly. And here's the tricky part about it. We live in a fantasy state of being sometimes. So we image and imagine, oh, my wife is going to look like this. She's going to be this tall. She's going to have these types of things. She's going to be, your soulmate is not going to look like anything or anybody you would have thought it would have looked like. And that's the hard thing that people struggle with. They think they're supposed to get this beautiful, attractive, not drop dead, not gorgeous woman. And your soulmate is not going to always be what you have imagined in your head. But when you're with her, they ever have that expression where they say, when you go shopping for a house or a car, you walk in there and you take a look, or you drive that car, you say, this is my car. Yeah. That's the same thing kind of when you're picking your spouse, and it doesn't even really take a long time. It just, pretty quickly, and so that's when you found the quote unquote one.
Man, beautiful, beautiful answer. I'm glad that we're giving the people this information. And I think it's utmost important that we started with you. Now we're going to move on to the other side of things. And to me,
sure.
It was going all in and finding someone that is willing to go all in with you. That was the most attractive thing to me early on. Like you said, we all have expectations, and we talked about it on your podcast last week. It may be salary based, it may be situation based, it may be aesthetically, like we just discussed. But now that I see you had the same experience, I am just more confident that when you meet that person, they're going to blow you away because they're going to be nothing like there's nothing like you envisioned it, but you
Yeah,
will
that's
know
correct.
it. You will feel it. And in my experience as well, it was early on, man. You know,
Yeah.
and because I knew this, we did go through some rough patches, and we're gonna talk about that as well. But I knew, man. I
Yeah.
knew. I knew.
Yes.
But I was attracted to my wife physically. I was
Yes.
attracted to her mentally because she was on a career path. She had ambition. But we're not talking about that superficial right now, Andrew. We're talking about that true love, man. That
Yes.
soulmate. That's that love that feeds your spirit, man. And what fed my spirit and what attracted me to my wife and what made me realize that I would never let this woman go was she was all in, man, early on.
Yes.
It was questions like, what can I do to make your day better? How can I help you? You know, it was meal preps so that she knew I had a good lunch at work. You know, it was so small things like my socks were matched, so I'm not running around crazy. And I'm not talking about gender roles or pushing your woman into chores of that type. You work out your own balance in your household; those things will come. That's irrelevant to the point that I just knew she cared, man. I knew she would
Yes.
be all in with me when the struggle hit, when times got hard, and they will. And that's
Yes.
why this is so important to find the person that you trust. And we're going to get to trust as well. That was Andrew's key, man. And it is definitely on the top of the list, but that you could call when your life's on the line. I've been
Yes.
in a car accident. I'm getting rushed to the hospital. I don't know, you know, I'm on the way. You know, it's no sort of, you know, worrying about that. Hey, babe, this is one from my younger days. I got locked up. She on the phone, man. She putting money on the book. She coming to the visits now. Nowadays, I would be innocent. But once again, the situation and the metaphor is irrelevant. It's that trust that you have that I'm on my last dollar and I'm run on E on the side of the road. I'm on my way. When you know you
That's it.
got that, oh man, it encourages the other party to let go of a lot of their guards. Let go of a
Right.
lot of those blockades, the things we put in place to keep people at a distance because they get comfortable, man. And through that
Yes.
comfort, they become their truest, most authentic self because they trust you enough to be that person. And that is how you know you're really with the true person because you're seeing that true, authentic self built through trust and that going all in. But the number two thing on that is being reciprocal, man. You know, I'm guilty. I was guilty in the beginning, and we're gonna talk about this next. Respect of having this. So I was young in the mind. I was in my mid 30s, but I still was very immature. I had this feeling of I'm the man. You know, I should be
Yes.
treated a certain type of way, and all these things that she's doing for me, the meals, the laundry, the what can I do to make your day better? That's all supposed to be happening because I'm the man.
Right. Right.
And that put us through some of these tough times that we're going to talk about. But once I learned that this person is now owed for you to be that same person and being all in with them. And once I made that commitment, man, that's another strong key here to commit. Because if you don't want to be in it, don't be in it, man. Don't waste nobody's time. When I committed to be that man that was all in, like she was for me, man, our relationship skyrocketed. And I don't mean just one way. I mean financially, spiritually, emotionally,
Yes.
our love and our bond grew stronger. And if you do that right, your love will grow and you'll love that person more. You don't think it's possible, but it will happen years down the line. You look at them and say to yourself, maybe you'll say it to them if you're doing what you're supposed to do, because we're going to talk about communication too, and think, man, I love you more than I did yesterday. And that's a fact.
Yes. Well, the thing is, you know, it's funny you say when you say be all in, you'll hear people use terms on social media. They'll say, you know, she's on my program or she's willing to do whatever. You'll hear street terms like ride or die.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more or less that if you meet somebody and they're on the same page as you and you say they're all in, they're willing to do whatever it takes to make the relationship work, and you know that even when times get rough, they're not going anywhere. They're gonna stay there with you. They're not gonna try to leave and, you know, go somewhere else. And what happens is the better, see, what you were talking about earlier was your ego getting in the way a little bit, was that we take our relationships, our blessings, when we receive them, we sort of take them for granted.
Mm.
So we just say, okay, I've been getting this type of treatment for months now, years, and I'm expecting it to stay here, better not go away. And because I'm running this thing here, I'm doing this, that, and the other. But it's really not. And I mentioned to it the last time I was on your podcast, and I mentioned it that you're in this, all the stuff that you're doing. Nowadays they're telling men, you hear a lot of stuff going on right now with men. Oh, don't get married. She's going to take you to the cleaner. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. You're hearing all this pro movement to tell people not to get married and all of this stuff. Marriage is beneficial for both the man and the woman for different reasons, but there's a reason why it's beneficial, because we talked about this before. There's areas that your spouse is going to be good at, certain things that you're not good at. And there's going to be things that she cannot essentially survive without you doing certain things. When I say survive, she could find someone else who maybe be able to do the same thing. But in the context of the marriage, there's certain things that you can do. I was watching, Robert, this is funny. I was watching this video. It was a woman, and she was in her 40s, early 40s. She'd never been married. I think she had a child or so, maybe, but she had to have a surgery, and she realized that she didn't have nobody in her life. This is an attractive woman. She didn't have a spouse or anybody, and she needed help because in the surgery, she was gonna, her recovery, she needed someone to pick her up, take her home, take care of her for a few days. And she realized that she didn't have anybody. And she realized that, she made some mistakes throughout her dating history when she was younger and could have had somebody, because she reflected on it. And she was like, a lot of the guys who I turned away, when I got, older and I went to look for them and see what they were doing, they were already married. Mm-hmm. And that's how that happens. So when the universe sends you, that quote unquote soulmate, and we did an episode here on my podcast on soulmates, basically, do you believe in them? And we went and did an episode. I had a licensed professional counselor and we talked about it. And the thing is, when you're all in with somebody else, you don't even think, you do things automatically. You don't even think about it sometimes, because you're going to say, what can I do to make her day just a little bit better today? It could be something small. It don't even have to be a big thing. Just surprise her sometimes. Just maybe she's at work, send her some flowers. She'll remember that. That's it's like an imprint. It's like it's stamped into a computer almost, and she'll remember it and won't forget it. Little small things. If she comes home and you just did something simple like did the dishes, started cooking, maybe prepare a little bit of a meal, or do something that she would normally do, but you did it already. So when she gets home, she doesn't have to do it. Simple things like that. And the same thing goes for us with me. Like there's things where, she'll do when I'm not around, or when I have to travel or go somewhere, she'll take care of something that I wouldn't expect her that she did, that I wouldn't expect her to do, but she did it. That's when you say be all in. Both people have to agree with that. I tell this to women all the time. Women say, well, why did he marry this girl right here? I'm prettier than her. I'm more attractive than her. I could treat him good, this, that, and the other. And it's because of what you just said. She's all in and you're not. Mm-hmm. That's why he married her. So her looks, aesthetics, she doesn't have to be the prettiest woman in the room. She's attractive to where even when she don't wear makeup, you're attracted to her and you love her. You got to put on all this makeup to call yourself pretty. Think you're prettier than her. She's barely wearing any makeup at all. So that's what he's looking for. Men are more important things, like men will choose compatibility over beauty. Mm-hmm. And sometimes women don't understand that. They think that since we're visual, that's all that matters. All your beauty does is get you into the club for free. That's it. After that, you got to still secure the man. So that's not enough. Your beauty gets you in the party, but that's all you get. From that point on, you got to put in the work. And that's how it works.
I may have an unpopular opinion about that, but I do feel like this, and it is because of my experience. When you're looking at a person like that, they have too much focus on themselves to put the necessary
Yes.
amount of focus on you, to where you feel loved and supported, and and all the things that you need to feel in your relationship. Well, I think you made a great segue with that answer into respect, because a lot of the things
Yes.
that we're talking about doing for our partners is because of this mutual respect that we have. So why don't you go ahead and into that?
Sure. And I say this all the time, and I can tell, I've counseled different people in a variety of different settings. Because even though did addiction counseling, it's not just addictions you're dealing with. You're dealing with all kind of other stuff as well. So you're dealing with, emotions. You're dealing with mental health. You're dealing with marriage counseling. You're dealing with all kinds of things. And I tell people, I've seen couples who've argued and fought and did different things. I've seen some really serious, you know, uh, knockdown, drag out fights per se, with no violence, but very heated arguments. And I remember talking to my wife about one situation that we saw, and when we left them and they went their separate ways, one couple went with one person, with another couple, and then the other person went with someone else. And we got in the car and was driving home. I remember telling my wife, I said, that relationship is over.
Mm,
And she says, why did you say that? I says, because she doesn't respect him.
mm,
One thing for when it comes to a woman and a man, when a woman loses respect for her spouse, husband, boyfriend, the relationship is over.
mhm.
And it's hard for some men to understand that. But when a woman doesn't respect you anymore, the relationship is over, because you'll notice her tone, how she talks to you changes. She's not considering you for certain things anymore. She doesn't care. You might come home and she didn't prepare dinner or whatever. That's when it's over. That respect factor is gone. Men sometimes on our side of it, the respect factor is we just sit there and we will, go out and have, some type of fling or relationship with somebody else and don't even care what the outcome is. That's the respect side on a man. He'll just do certain things and doesn't really care about what the outcome will be. If she gets mad or whatever feeling it brings out of her, they don't care. So respect is so pivotal. A relationship cannot survive if there's the respect factor is gone. It is not the main piece of a house, because I always say honesty is the foundation of a relationship. But I would say respect is probably the framing of the house, because you have to have that in order for a relationship to have any long-term substance. And if you don't have that, it's going to be tough. I mean, I cannot see a relationship surviving when one of the two aren't respecting the other.
Yeah, and I think it's a problem when one side is demanding that respect but not giving it. And
Oh yeah.
that's why, in my side of respect, and I'm once again reflecting through personal experience, when talking to the men, I want to say, be worthy of that title. You want to walk in your house and call yourself the king, but what are you doing out there in those streets? A very wise person once said to me, you can't continue reaping the benefits of that family style life that you have when you're doing dirt, when you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
negative things. So once again, my attitude was, I'm the king, I'm the man, I'm the father. I'm going to come home and put my feet up and watch TV, and you're going to cook, you're going to clean, you're going to do all the work with the kids. And then, I'm going to go out with my buddies if I want, and all these different things, and not have that respect for how she felt about those things. And also then to match that respect. Well, once the respect started growing, it was, just like you said, doing the things that matter when she's not around, hopping in on tasks that I wouldn't normally do: dishes, cleaning, changing diapers, taking care of washing the children, whatever, because I have that respect for my mate, that we're able to sort of balance out our workloads between each other. So, If she's working more in school and work, then I'm doing more of these things. And if I'm doing more with podcasting and volunteering at the prison, then she's picking up, the slack there. So be worthy of that title, man. And the way that you be worthy of that title is respecting her feelings, even if you don't think it's valid. In the beginning of my relationship, because I'm not an emotional being, I had to sort of understand emotions and how they worked, so that even if I felt like something was absolutely irrelevant, if she felt differently, then guess what? It's not irrelevant, because now it's causing rifts, creating rifts, which we're going to talk about as well, with communication in our relationship. So be worthy of that title. Act with honor, integrity, discipline. Hold yourself on high moral ground, morals, ethics, the way you treat people and the way you treat her, and watch your respect level rise within your workplace, your household, and your wife. And as that respect level rises, I don't care if you're scrubbing the garage floor, or taking out the trash, or doing the nastiest job in the house. You're going to hold your head high like a king, because your woman and your family treat you that way.
That's right.
On the side of women, I would like to ask you to be patient. I would like to ask you to be patient, and here's why. A lot of times when we meet that soulmate, we have that amazing chemistry, we do sort of rush into things.
Yes.
And certain things are instilled in a man that he may or may not realize. I realize now, and that's why my discipline overrides it, that on some deep level, I had some desires to do some things that weren't conducive to a monogamous relationship. And I'm not talking about sexual acts. I'm just talking about liking another woman's post on Facebook, having maybe a conversation with a woman that I didn't feel like inappropriate, but maybe my wife did. So if the man respects you, cares about your opinion, makes the necessary changes, and that is a sincere apology, immediate changes in behavior, and gives it the time with the necessary changes. If you give him that and he does that, you may have just landed yourself a keeper. Because if a man is willing to change for you, you just might be the one. You hear a lot of women say that. He ain't never going to change. He ain't never going to change. If he don't change, you ain't the one. Steve Harvey says that. He's big on it. And that's real. If a man is willing to change their behavior for you, guess what, girl? They love you. So be patient. So let's move on to communication. We're about halfway through. And we have a few different points on this. I'm going to start, and I'm going to pass it to Andrew, because he has a good point on communication too. Communication is key. That's why it's probably the biggest key that we have here. We're going to bounce back and forth on it. Mine was don't create rifts. I feel like oftentimes relationships, especially early on in dating and courting and all these things, we let things slide. We let certain behaviors slide. We let certain conversations. We don't feel like having the fight right now. We don't feel like having the difficult conversation right now. Here's my advice. Do it. Do it often and early. I guess I'm segueing into your setting boundaries, but early and often. Nip things in the bud, because that way you're going to stay on the same page throughout. And if you attempt to set these boundaries or nip things in the bud or have a difficult conversation, and the other person reacts in a way that you don't perceive as something that's conducive to you going the distance, then you just saved yourself a whole lot of time. You walked out. But if you don't do yourself the service of setting boundaries early and often, having the difficult conversations, when topics arise, whether it's behavior or modes of conversation, and things happen that you don't like, you have to nip it in the bud. And I believe that you should go into relationships with certain deal breakers and non-negotiables. And if those things are not met, then you need to walk. And if you don't set that early, you're wasting your time and the other person's as well.
Yes, and you were talking about this, the communication aspect of it and how important it is, and it really is. I mean, communication usually, if you look at the top 3 or 4 reasons people get divorced, communication is usually either 3 or 4. Usually behind money and adultery or things to that effect. And the reason being is because a lot of times when we don't, there's certain things that communicate. The biggest thing with communication, it's 3 elements to it. It's talking, listening, and body language. We're all good at talking. Obviously me and you are. We talk a lot here on these podcasts and stuff like that. But are we good listeners? Do we listen well? Are we listening to what our partner's asking us? asking from us and asking for us? What do they want? Are we really paying attention to that? So listening is very important. Being a good listener really will help you in your relationships, and reading people's body language also will help. You'll learn a lot about what's going on just by how they're acting. I can tell when my wife is upset or something, or she has anxiety about something, because her body language changes.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have to say anything, but I can tell. And that's why being a good communicator, like those three elements, learning how to do those three things, reading body language and listening, besides the talking, is very important. Now, as far as boundaries go, the boundaries, what people don't understand is that when it's a man or a woman, you set boundaries to protect yourself. Boundaries are protecting you. If I'm a man and I have boundaries, and there is a woman who might be attractive to me, but her behavior is suspect, or some of the things she does, leaves you scratching your head saying, well, why did she do that? When you have boundaries in place, you screen them out. So there's no long-term pain that will be associated with you in that relationship, whatever might happen in it, because you know that you're not going to be spending a lot of time with a person like that. They're not going to like you, because people who have unhealthy boundaries
Mm-hmm.
don't mesh good with people who have boundaries, because they're going to think that, oh, there's too many rules. He's saying I can't do this, I can't do that. Why can't I do this? Why can't I go out with my friends and go on vacation without him and have a good old time? Why can I do? They're going to talk in these types of terms, and the reason why they're going to say that is because they don't have any boundaries, and if they do, and their boundaries that they do have are unhealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a man will get trapped with this one particular thing, where the woman will always want to be around you. She'll feel incomplete without your being in a relationship with you. Well, that's an unhealthy boundary. Like you were saying earlier when we first started talking, you had to be right with yourself first before you could even meet somebody else to be in a relationship with. Well, the same thing with them, but they're not right with themselves. So they're going to rely on you to provide them their happiness. And if you remember the first time we talked, I said, I'm not the happiness guy. Happiness is a long-term emotional feeling. I cannot provide it for you. I can give you instances where I will make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not happy when you show up and you don't have happiness with you, no person is going to be able to make you happy. Well, a person with unhealthy boundaries gets their happiness from the relationship that they're in. So they're not showing up happy. They can't be happy unless they're in some type of relationship. There have been several celebrities you see that might date multiple people. As soon as they get done with one relationship, they'll jump into another one, jump into another one, jump into another one. All they're basically saying is that I have unhealthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And the prettier the woman is, sometimes the more likely she'll get away with it.
Mm.
But it's you'll see it. It plays itself out.
Absolutely.
So this is what I'm talking with the boundaries. When as a man, if you have good, strong, healthy boundaries, you won't have issues finding the right woman once you did what you said earlier in the first place, and that's fix you. Because the women will respect your boundaries. Women will respect your boundaries. I share one quick example of a story that I had. I used to have, when I was single, I never would, give a woman the key to my apartment or house unless, and the rule was basically if we're not engaged, at least you don't get it. If you, whatever happens, you don't get that's just a boundary I had, a personal boundary I had. And there was one woman who I was dating, and, again, very attractive, but kept insisting on wanting the key to my place. And so I kept telling her no. Well, come to find out, the reason why she wanted that key is because her last relationship she had with her other boyfriend, she went and visited him and she found him with somebody else. Mm-hmm. So now she's taking that unhealthy emotion that she just experienced and bringing it to our relationship. So that's why I kept that boundary in place, because she wanted it for the wrong reasons. Not, she was thinking about her past. And, we say that the saying is, if you're living in your past for your relationships in the present, so if you're presently in a relationship with someone, but you're living in your past, it leads to no future. because that person is not going to stay with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I mean, communication is one of the biggest, and I think those two things sort of set the standard as you're going through the selection process. But this next one is more for couples that been together a while or married couple. You know, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I believe I'm not agreeing with everything that he says, but I do believe he's hitting the nose a lot with relationships. And one of the things that he says about relationships is married couples should spend 90 minutes a week minimum discussing whatever's on the plate. And it's something that me and my wife practice religiously, man. Whether we have a babysitter so that we can grocery shop or whatever without the kids there and being in the cart. We do it while driving, and we talk about everything that's on the plate. Now, these conversations can spring all the way from day-to-day operations within the house to, what each individual child is doing and where they are showing strengths, where they are showing weaknesses, what we need to do to keep them all on track. And then we move into what we need to do to keep ourselves on track. How is she feeling at work? How is she doing in school? How is she feeling about our relationships? With me, it's usually moving into like the things that I'm passionate and excited about and my dreams and hopes and goals and aspirations. But those are the times where we can adjust those dreams, goals, hopes, and aspirations, make compromises on our behaviors and what we want and what we're doing, what we're seeing in order to align. Because that alignment is how you create that power couple. And if you don't do that, if you don't spend that time and take that energy to have those one-on-one conversations, at least once in a while, I believe that you may create those rifts. And that's why I say nip them things in the bud. Like you said, Andrew, set those boundaries and then continue that mode of communication throughout. And that way there's no opportunity for you to grow apart, because I do think it's easy for that to happen if you just let things slide. I think about it whenever I don't let things slide. I don't care if my wife thinks I'm crazy. If I feel a certain type of way about something, I'm going to say it because I know that she will. And just because that is a healthy relationship. If you're not having these conversations, or if you let things slide, if something happens and then you feel hurt, but you don't say it, then now maybe you're behaving in a certain type of way. And then maybe that person sees that behavior change. So now then they're behaving in a certain type of way. And see how that can very quickly lead you to grow apart, because, maybe it was a perceived hurt feeling. Maybe you misunderstood it. Maybe you misperceived it and you don't even know. And now you're not making your husband's lunch every day and he's at work going, well, what the hell? And then, but because you didn't nip it in the bud, now he's doing that. And now you're not making his lunch. And now maybe he's, staying for 5, 10, 15 minutes later with his buddies, laughing and joking around the work table as they get off, because he's not in a rush to go home and see you because he's feeling hurt. But it could have all been nipped in the bud. It could have all been solved had you communicated, man. So spend that time, spend that energy, communicate throughout. Behave in the way that you did, at least to the best of your ability, in the beginning, throughout, man. And you'll solve a lot of those problems. Let's get it moving, because we're round up on 45 minutes, man, but it's a good one.
Wow. That time's going by pretty fast, isn't it?
Yeah, man. So mix and match. Choose wisely. This is for my daters. Something that came to me a little bit later on. I didn't consciously do it, but I believe if you're single, why not, man? As we moved into our relationship, something that I realized was that all the things that I hate doing or I'm not good at, my wife does or is good at, And I always talk about it. You've heard me talk about this, the filling of the gaps.
Yes.
And that's how you truly mesh and complete and become a strong bonded unit, man. It's like, I'm a talker. I do the talking. My wife is a researcher. She could chase down information,
Yes.
I'm the discipline. I'm the structure for our children. She's the lover and the nurturer. Even when you go down to chores, like, I don't mind dealing with the trash. I don't mind doing all the heavy lifting. I don't mind doing certain other things. She doesn't mind cooking or doing the dishes or doing, so we just fit, man. And if you sort of, once again, have all these conversations, you're learning that. And because we fit together that way, we become a more powerful unit. And if you're able to sort of navigate that during the selection process, man, I think you'd be doing yourself a huge favor, man. How you feel about that, Andrew?
I totally agree. If you can find, and like you were saying, when the universe realizes that you got your act together and it's going to send you, the person that sends you is literally going to fit, it's like a hand in glove.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally going to fit into all the stuff that you're describing and talking about. Now, Robert, I will tell you in a sort of a joking way, the heavy lifting and everything that you're doing now, the good news is that when your boys get older, they will be doing it for you.
Already, brother. I put in the work.
That's right. That's right. So that's one thing, that advantage you have. But the other things is too, is that when you have that spouse that can, fill in those gaps, everything just kind of flows. Everything sort of just flows, and you don't have to really worry about a whole lot. And so the things that like you said, we got not. If you remember when we talked the last time on your podcast, I says I'm not a good cook, but my wife is an excellent cook. Those types of things.
Yeah.
And I do run the finances and stuff like that. And that she wasn't necessarily good at that, but it put us in a point to where there's certain things that she knows she doesn't even have to worry about, just because she's with me. And the same thing applies when she does certain things. I always say a good way to measure whether or not you have a good woman and whether or not this person is really good for you is if you have to leave and go somewhere out of town, are you worried and have anxiety that the spouse or your wife isn't going to be able to handle it? Can you go away for a few days and then not come back and there's not chaos in place? And if you have that, that's a good sign. You know that she's gonna take care of them. They're gonna get a hot cooked meal. I mean, there were times where I had to, in 2019 and 2020, I had to leave my family for 2-week stints. And this happened 6-7 times. And I didn't really have to worry a whole lot. I didn't have to worry too much about different things because my spouse took care of things while I was gone. And that's what I'm talking about. If you can, have someone like that, that even when you're not there, even for maybe a short period of time, they can handle and take care of things. So that mix and match that you're describing, man, it is so, so important. Like my wife doesn't do anything with cars, do anything like I take care of all of that stuff. So whether these oil changes, any of that, she doesn't even have to worry. These are things she doesn't even have to worry about. Now, if she's single or there's a woman out here single, she's got to figure out how to get someone. She's got to find someone who knows how to do these things, or where she's not going to go somewhere and they're going to try and rip her off. She doesn't know, these things. So that's something that you have to take into account. So on a woman's side, they'll have that they have to do with the same thing on a man. That mixing and matching is finding someone who fills that gap is very, very important.
Man, and you know what else happens? I just thought about this, and it's a beautiful thing. It is, man. It sort of gave me a shot to the ego, and I had to sort of develop other ways to create value in my house. But when you're doing that, guess what happens? Your weaknesses you grow strong at because you're seeing how it's done. Something that you talked about that me and my wife do as well. Like I do all the finances. She does all, a lot of all the other things. And one of the things I always handled was negotiation. I have a gift of gab. I'm a very good speaker, So whenever she was time to get a job or negotiate a promotion or negotiate a raise or negotiate one of our housing situations or negotiate one of the contracts while we were traveling, she always came to me, man. Hey, this person sent me this email. This person sent me this message. How do I respond to it? And I'm very tactical and very strategic. And I also find joy in these things. I like playing the game. It's like playing a game to me.
Sure.
It was if I could brag for a minute, it's how I was able to maneuver myself in the corporate world very easily, even though I don't typically look like that sort of person because I knew how to play the game, man.
Right.
But what happens is she grew strong. She's a boss at it, man. She doesn't ask me anything anymore. And I go with the lip like, oh man, that's where I used to find value. And that's where I used to help out. And I thrived in that because I enjoyed doing it. But it's also peace. It gives me peace. It gives me joy because I go, look what you did, man. You helped her grow and aspire and evolve into this beautiful person that she's becoming. And then it just goes hand in hand with, I love you more now, each day because I'm seeing that you're putting forth that word. And on the flip side of that, man, let me just tell you, I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you about all these righteous things if my wife hadn't got her hold on me. She made me see things differently, man. She opened me up to love and the ability to not always be tough and hard and all those things, to soften and open myself up to different things in life. And in that way, just like you were talking about before, it flows. It's effortless.
Yes.
You both learn. You both grow. You both get better at your weaknesses. So now, man, when you're putting that team together, you really can become unstoppable. So
That's
we got
right.
2 keys left. Number one, or the second to the last one, is sexual interactions, man. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We're sort of going to breeze right over it, because if you got any questions on it, I have a whole episode based on sexual health, and it is a paid episode on the podcast. It's 99 cents. Not much, but I'm going to tell you what, you can get it for free. All you got to do is go to Rumble. It's an hour-long episode where I literally go through in epic detail about everything and all things sexual health, sexual relations. And that's why I'm doing this show, because it's sort of a throwback, when I was doing Everyday Excellence series, the blueprint on how to get it done, championship mindset, how to wrap your head around things. And that was part of that championship mindset talk, was a sexual health edition. And now, we're getting into more and more, and we're going to continue to give you these level ups here at Creating Greatness. I took a little break. I tried to hit y'all here and there to stay consistent, but really now I'm going to do it when I want, when I feel motivated, inspired, when I have information that I know you need to hear, and when I talk about things that I love, and when I have humans that I love on the show, like my good friend Andrew Johnson. So we're going to skip right over that. Go to that episode, man. Check it out. If you want to support me, I would love it if you subscribe and get the 99 cent, but you could get it free on Rumble. It's a dope episode. Sex, talk about it, communicate, and get it right. And we'll move on to trust, the last one, man. What do you got for me, Andrew?
Well, as they say, the saying is, love is strong, but trust is fragile. So when the trust is gone in a relationship, or you have an issue pertaining to trust, what happens is, if you are a man, say you violate the trust of your relationship, whether it was an adultery or you did something along those lines, you ever break a dish or a plate and it drops on the floor, you can put that plate back together. You can glue it back together, and you can use that plate again. Mm-hmm. The problem is, it doesn't look anything like what it did before it dropped on the floor. That's what trust is in a relationship. It's fragile. So it takes a long time for people to build up their trust in you. You ever been in a relationship in a past where you had somebody who you dated that came out of a difficult relationship, a tumultuous relationship, where it was trauma? There might have been violence, there might have been domestic abuse. You ever been in a relationship with someone like that, and you come out into the dating market with them? Do you know how long it takes them to develop trust for you? You notice it takes them a long time. They're very, very cautious, because that's how fragile trust is. Mm-hmm. It takes them a long time to heal. And so that's what it is. Trust is not something you get right away. You got to earn it. And the only way you earn it is through time and behavior, what you actually do. If I do something, I got to take in consideration, not only am I hurting my wife if I do something crazy, but I'm also hurting my children. I'm not just cheating on my wife. I'm cheating on my children as well.
Right.
And so that's something you got to take into consideration. You just can't run out here and do whatever it is that you want, because it's affecting your household. Everybody is affected when you do certain things. And men, we're supposed to be the head of the household. Mm-hmm. So what happens if the head of the household is damaged or broken, or the whole thing comes crumbling down? So it's a slippery slope. But when we make a commitment to somebody, we got to understand what that all entails. And trust is one of those things. That's something that you have to take into consideration. Trust is one of those things.
That's right. And when that trust isn't there, and like you said, and it breaks down, and the foundation breaks down, and the kids suffer and the household suffer, you start to see a lot of the problems that we're experiencing today. high
Yes.
levels of incarcerated youth, high levels of
Yes.
suicide, high levels of drug addiction, because both aspects of the divine, the masculine and the feminine, were not present in the household, man. So we have to
Yes.
come together as a people, white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter, color, race, creed, gender, none of that, man. We have to come together as a people and start treating each other with dignity, respect, and building that trust back, man. But something interesting. I wanted to ask you this question: have you ever heard of kintsugi?
I have. I just don't know what all it entails, but I have heard of that. Yes.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Let me drop it on the folks before we wrap this thing up. We about to hit an hour even. Every time me and Andrew link up, man, we just really, really have a good time, man. We really have
Oh
a good
yeah.
time, and we
Absolutely.
that fire, man. So I'm very appreciative for you coming back on. We're gonna do some more. We're gonna keep going.
Oh
But
yeah. Oh yeah.
kintsugi is a Japanese tradition where they fix broken things with precious materials in order to make a new thing.
Mm.
And so, once again, I asked people to choose wisely, to pay close attention, and to understand that it cannot happen repeatedly. But if the trust is betrayed by either party, it is not instantaneous disperse. Once again, there should be non-negotiables, there should be deal breakers, and I believe you should hold yourself to that. But if a sincere apology is made, if an immediate rectification of the behavior is also made, because that's the real apology. The words could be words, and especially these manipulators out there, they could spin some things. So I would say to be cautious if there are any other factors playing out in the relationship besides love, whether it's somewhere to stay, a vehicle, any sort of financial gain that the opposite party is experiencing, then maybe you have to really be wary of that apology. But if you do it right and the betrayer of the trust is sincerely remorseful, and that sincere remorse is immediately followed by rectification of behavior, if the opposing party, the non-betrayer, be a little patient and pay very close attention, that person truly is remorseful, truly is sincere, truly is putting in the work day in and day out to rebuild that trust, because that's how anything great is built. Step by step, day by day. And if you do that and you do it right, maybe you just have a little kintsugi in your life.